really great, rivalry win. I'll talk about that now that the game's over and we won. But nice rivalry win on the week. And obviously, you just can't tell you enough how much that stadium and the fans and the students, played a part in that. That was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. They make a big difference, and I know they know that, and we're appreciative of all of that. But I thought, the first half was what it was. I mean, that's an interesting way to start off a game, obviously. To spot them 7 like that wasn't really in our plan, but it is what it is. I mean, that is loud down there, so our guys got to do a better job communicating. It hung in the air so long, like just fair catch it and move on with our lives. Definitely something that we got to make sure we're on the same page with moving forward. I thought we were, but obviously we weren't. But then we come back and battle, right? We scored, they score. I thought both quarterbacks were near perfect, in that first half. It was one of those moments, and I think going into halftime, we just really talked about it. Like, we are going to win this football game. Everybody relax. We're going to win this football game, but, really the team, whatever defense kind of bent first or whatever defense looked inward and down and pitied themselves first was going to be the team that would end up losing that game because both offenses were clicking. And then, we were the defense that obviously came out and won that game and had to win that game at that moment. I thought all really, really good on offense, but to come back out in the second half, obviously Colton was near perfect. I've never, witnessed the accuracy and the way he battled that whole first half. It was that some moment he was going to give us one, and it happened to be the first play of the second half, and our guys capitalized on it, which we talked about at halftime. Is just stay the course. We're doing fine on offense. Defense, one defense or the other is going to start to crack a little bit. Don't let it be us. And I just love the way we responded and came back out in that second half, and then just ultimately ran away with it. I think the punt in the end, where that they muffed, was a big deal, and that put us in position to kind of pull away. And I thought that was what turned the tides ultimately. But overall, really good day. Really proud of just the way these guys battled in the second half, and the way that they didn't fold or hang their heads in the first half either. So overall, a good day. There's a lot of words.
What is it about this defense that, you guys had given up about 270 yards in the first half, and then to turn it around in the second half and pretty much pitch a shutout there? What is it about this defense that allows them to even be able to do that to that extreme level? Yeah,
well, there's enough bullets, in the arsenal to fire ultimately, and I think it's just which ones are going to work. And mid-drive, there's not a lot you could do mid-drive against these guys because you're not even barely set yet, and that ball is being snapped. They're barely set yet, and the ball is being snapped. So, there's things that we had to do and adjust a little bit differently, and we'll have to get the calls in a little bit quicker, especially next week coming up with Texas State, because they're even faster, I think, than these guys. So that's the advantage you have. The disadvantage to that is that if you don't convert, the time of possession here was 42-18, and so it's a quick 3 and out if you end up going out. But it's hard to make those adjustments. So it was really kind of getting on the bench, but then it was different things we were seeing throughout those drives, and it really took us to get to halftime to be able to calm it down and have conversations about what we needed to do moving forward. But they play hard. They understand what they need to do, and they were able to accomplish that today.
And then when you switch it to the other side of the ball, I would say this is probably the most comfortable Alonza has looked at the quarterback position.
Yep.
What were you seeing out of him just to start fast early?
Yeah, just poise and truly understanding where this ball needed to go and truly understanding where the receivers were going to be. I mean, there were so many third down conversions that happened. The biggest one I felt was, to Landon in the corner down here. That was a beautiful ball. He had time. He used the time wisely, went through his progression and found the receiver and, put it where only our guy could catch it. That throwing people open and being extremely accurate is, what you got to do in that position. But he understood he had time when he saw that there was no rush, and there were moments where he pulled the ball down and used that no rush when it all lifted in the coverage-wise to be able to make some money with his feet. So he did a really good job of not being one-dimensional, just sitting in the pocket. He got the ball out quickly with pressure. He pulled it down and ran without pressure. And then a lot of things he did in a quarterback run game were really, really good today as well.
How much did you guys put an emphasis on him using his feet a little bit more this game? And
a lot.
Just how nice is it to see him get back to doing that?
No doubt. I mean, that's go back to the Marshall game. How did they beat these guys? They beat them with the quarterback run. And they not only designed quarterback run plays, but then just off the cuff creative ones that he was able to extend drives with and the play beyond the play. That's a really important piece of this too. The scramble drill, the Lakota. He knows he shouldn't throw back across his body down there, but Lakota did a good job of coming negative on the route and keeping a DB behind him and then making a really tough catch up top and taking some contact. But I thought there were some plays made beyond the play calls themselves, although the play calls today were absolutely phenomenal. I thought Coach Kennedy and Coach Smith and the whole entire offensive staff did a great job. But I also thought the ownership that the players took, in our meetings every week of being on the same page is probably what's, helped to increase that pass game production.
Just so I can kind of nip it in the bud, what did you tell Wiz after the opening kickoff?
I said, did you guys communicate? He said, yes, we both communicated. Curtis, did you hear me? Curtis said, I did not hear you. And I said, regardless, this ball is in the air forever. Just fair catch it and let's get out of here. And then obviously he's trying to make a great play. But, sometimes you make a bad play worse. And he did that by trying to hurdle somebody. And as he did, the arm came up and the ball came out and ends up being a touchdown. That happened once before, Assumption College against LIU Post in, the first play of the second half, I think. That has happened to us. But, that's really it. You don't see that very often.
And then J.E. gets that big interception, but Amar Thomas, I think, caused that play with a big hit on Cole Joseph. How important was getting pressure on him?
It was great. I mean, that's what we talked about coming out, from the half. We said we have to make him uncomfortable. If he sits back here, he is picking us apart right now with perfect, accurate timing throws that, we just have to either disrupt the receiver or get after him a little bit. We weren't able to disrupt the receiver too much, so we really had to get after him. And I thought Amar did a great job. Not only that, this is as a league, we call these, roughing the passers very, there's a lot of them that get called. And I thought he did a great job of nothing up high, nothing extra, didn't land on him. I was more concerned about that at some point because every time you touch a quarterback after they throw, it seems like it's a penalty. And I thought he did a really good job of controlling himself while applying pressure at the same time.
This game kind of seemed like it was coming for DeGennaro at wide receiver, that 65-yarder, and then following it up later with another touchdown. How nice was it to see that performance, especially after, last week Landon had his statement game?
It's awesome. He's worked so hard, and he's put himself in position to, be a premier receiver in this league, and we needed him to be able to have that breakout. He needed to have that breakout. He never got frustrated. He comes to work every day. He's a leader, and those are all really important things, especially when it's not going your way. You could go one of two ways, and I love that he stayed the course and never wavered from what he knows he was capable of, and then he knew his time would shine. We said it before the game. At some point, this light is going to shine on somebody. It's not going to be the typical ones that we think. Someone is going to pop today, kind of like Landon last week. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but it's going to be somebody. And to see J.E., to be able to be one of them, right, and to see Nicky D be able to be one of them, pretty impressive for two older guys that just stayed the course. Well, I think that, our ability to be able to, just diagnose things at halftime, I thought our coaches have done a really, really good job of that. Again, there's enough bullets to fire on defense. There's enough that we carry on offense that we can get to certain things. It's just what does that game look like as we're, moving through it. They stayed what they were on defense ultimately, but offensively, we knew that we didn't expect to get beat like we were getting beat at moments. And then I thought for us to be able to come back and say, all right, now we got to protect certain people. We got to get after this quarterback and just do a better job, overall of not hanging guys out to dry until they get comfortable with the speed of these guys and the routes they're running. So I think you can't mimic what we saw out there in scout team all week. So it does take a minute in these games. And I think a lot of these teams like this that run this type of offense score early. It's just, is it sustainable? And then at some point in time, if it's a 3 and out, and they took 12 seconds off the clock, they're putting their defense right back out there. And then that's really the way to victory is through a tired defense. And that's where, again, 42-18, you're able to have that success.
I just want to circle back over to Zoe just to have a career performance like he had today. How big of a confidence boost is that for him just moving forward, especially having it at this part of the year going?
Yeah, against a great defense, right, in front of this crowd, and people have doubted him many times before, and for him to be able to stand in there and deliver like he did, speaks volumes of just, his belief in himself. But I also think Coach Kennedy, to put him in position to be successful, to find better, opportunities for him in the pass game, and then mix in some RPO things and then let him run. Those are all important things for any quarterback, to not just sit in a pocket and have to everything go perfect. There was a lot of things he was able to take on himself and handle, and he did a great job. And I thought our coaches did a phenomenal job on the offensive side of the ball today.
No, the defense was lights out in the second half, but how crucial was the 3 and out at the end of the first half? And do you feel like that had a carryover effect in how you all played in the second half? 100%.
Yeah, and in the end, it got a little sticky for us on offense, but I thought the defense, to be able to hold them, and they were committed to running the ball at that moment, but, for us to be able to get out of there, use our timeouts wisely, get the ball back with some time on the clock. Really, the last play was just when you're at 4th and 4, you're stuck in this weird situation where, you're probably going to punt. You want to try to draw them off sides, but really the second is the 8-second snap is where you want to snap that ball. Because if you do throw it downfield and you convert, downfield, you have 2 more seconds for one more play. If you don't, they only have 2 seconds to try to strike. And, we just missed that 8-second mark, and it became the last play of the game, on that pass play. And if we could have anything back, it'd be that, we're snapping on 4th down with 8 seconds left to run a 6-second play and have that 2-second play follow.
Smoke Collins, first.
Cool.
Touchdown.
Wasn't that a great catch?
Pretty nice. It
was
catch.
awesome.
Not
Yeah.
only his first touchdown here, but first touchdown in Division I. Anything you want to say about his work?
I just thought, what a great
kid.
kid. First of all, a great ball by Slukin, and for him to be able to come back and go over the top of that. I don't think I've seen many of those in my career, and it was really awesome to watch him. He had to pin it to the kid's back and come down in the field of play in the end zone. Good for him.
I know when we talked to Patrick Ray during fall camp, he talked about kind of the difficulties that teams have fielding a lefty punter, and you saw it today where it was an untouched error. How big was even that momentum swing of being able to use Ray's lefty to your advantage?
Well, I thought that was it. Like I said, I think that was a turning point ultimately of the game. It's not the way that operates, though, with the lefty, because it's really a backspin punt he's hitting, and that's pretty square. The lefty is the idea of it coming off and turning off his left foot and putting it in the returner's left pocket off a spiral punt. So it wasn't necessarily that it was a lefty. I think it was that was a really firm quarterback ball that he punted. It didn't sound right when it hit his foot, and I was like, man, he did not hit this really good. And I think that not great hit, the inability to connect or just being a really firm football, put him in a position where it came up a little short. And then I thought the wind was pushing, but it wasn't at that moment. So the ball actually with the backspin kind of fell away from the returner, and he just misjudged a little bit. And what a great job by Feek to be able to get downfield and pursue that and recover that, because I think that was the turning point of the game. No, go ahead. Come on. We got one more for you.
I was going to ask you about your punts, but pregame, were you able to learn anything from a punt pregame with Rhea?
Yeah, I'm a lot better than I was today. I only got out there. I was stuck talking to the referees and everything else, so I was a little late. Next time when I warm up a little bit better, you've seen some good ones from me, right? So just be ready for that, this week, okay?